Hello everyone, welcome to the latest edition of CX Conversations. I'm Matt Simpson, the Managing Director at Candyspace, and today we are talking personalization, and I'm very excited because I'm just going to describe you as like the world's leading authority on personalization and not set expectations too high. I have with me Gianfranco Cuzziol. Hi Gianfranco.
Hey Matt, thank you very much. I'm sure that was probably a slight exaggeration. I'm probably a legend in my own mind, but not much further than that. But thank you.
Well, Gianfranco has written this book, In Pursuit of the Trivial, which is an amazing read on not just personalization, but CRM and much broader topics. And maybe you could just quickly sort of tell us about your background, Gianfranco.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I've probably spent about a good 25 years in the CRM, personalization, and loyalty space, and most of that time agency side, which is where obviously we met, Matt. So about 20 years agency side, working with some great agencies and some amazing brands. You know, with you, I worked on the likes of BT, Barrett Homes, Prezzo, BMW, and I've helped CRM with brands such as EasyJet and Compare the Market, so a whole host of different brands. And then about 6 years ago, I got the chance to go to the, whether you call it the dark side or the light side, but I went to work brand side, and got the opportunity to be, I was global head of CRM at Aesop, beautiful Australian skincare, body care brand, part of the then Natura group. Was there for a couple of years, went to work for Group as group head of CRM and personalization. And for the last 18 months or so, really doing freelance consulting work, coaching and mentoring roles as well with CRM and loyalty teams. And then dabbled in a bit of content creation in the form of my book. And the book, just for a second, you know, there's lots of experts out there who do a really good job about talking about personalization, loyalty, and marketing automation, etc. My book is slightly different. It's more of a 7 chapters that have a slight narrative, a yarn to the beginning of each of them, and then talks about some of those elements of personalization, customer journey planning, data strategy. And it was just my way of getting some thoughts down on paper, and it's quite a process. I actually never realized, because Mike, I know your background is content production, right? But I actually never realized how difficult it was to get content down on paper and to get it out into a fashion that people might want to read. So yeah, that was great.
Excellent. Well, let's try and extract some of those thoughts from your heads now. So I'm going to start with a confession. So almost 10 years ago, Social Media Week in Copenhagen, I stood up and did a presentation where I suggested that in the next 5 years, because of the advances in data engineering and the increasing sophistication of MarTech, every time anyone had an experience with a brand, it would be highly personalized, informed by personal and transactional and contextual data. That hasn't really happened. And a couple of years later, I was interested to see Keith Weed, who was the CMO at Unilever at the time, make a big, bold statement where he said Unilever have the ambition to have 1 billion one-to-one relationships. We're like 7 years on from that, 9 years on from my ill-fated Social Media Week talk. Like, it feels like there's a desire from customers for personalized experience, but it doesn't feel, other than a few examples which we could all probably name, that this is really happening at the sort of scale or sophistication that me or Keith Weed thought would happen. Why is that?
Well, it's a nice, easy, meaty topic to kick off the conversation, Matt. I think to start with, the Keith Weed quote that you had, so these 1 billion one-to-one relationships, I think that's actually a good starting point, because in my world, you know, I've worked for a long time in CRM, so customer relationship management, and to me, there are two pretty redundant words in that title, because in reality, I don't think the majority of customers want a relationship with a brand, right? And we can get into that in a second. But so I don't think there's if we take the Unilever example, right? I'm not sure that I want a relationship with Sir or Shaw or maybe even both role, right? So there you kind of you've come to a brick wall. And then managing a relationship, right? Yeah, you have to remember that, so the term CRM came out of the B2B space, where software was created to manage those business relationships, those account relationships that organizations had with suppliers and partners and customers. And then someone had the smart idea of putting that into the B2C world, and I don't think it works. The only term that's important there is customer, right? So I think that is fundamentally what we're trying to do. And if I had a magic wand, I'd turn every single CRM manager into just customer manager, because I think that should be front and center of everything that we do from a loyalty, customer experience, CRM, personalization perspective. So relationships, not every consumer wants a relationship with a brand. And then the personalization element, you're right. So now we have the data. Any brand that tells me they don't have enough data to do some level of personalization is talking nonsense. The technology is there. And you could argue that maybe even 5 years ago, despite the technology and the data being there, you could argue, well, maybe it was difficult to get them connected and to move data from the right bit of technology into another bit of technology. I think that's no longer true. It doesn't matter how small an organization you are, you will find a bit of kit that allows you to blend the technology and data that you need. I think a number of brands have forgotten that technology and data on their own don't solve the problem. Yeah, if fundamentally you don't go back to that customer term and you understand your customer, you don't really know what problem you're trying to solve on behalf of the customer. And I have this mantra that is, personalization without purpose is pointless. So if you don't think about what the customer is trying to deliver, all the technology and data in the world won't help you deliver on that. And you have to build the organization around customer and what you want to try and deliver. And technology comes last. So think about customer. What do they want? What's the problem? What are their needs and wants? Think about how you want to run the organization to deliver on the customer need. Then think about technology to support that. I've worked in a number of brands now where either the CMO or the CTO will come in and say, well, this is the technology I want to use. Marketing, you go away and decide how you fit into that technology. And I'm still of the belief that that's not the right way of doing it. So there's a whole bunch of different things that kind of inhibits that level of if a customer wants a relationship or not, and the level of personalization that customers want. And you're right. If you ask a customer, do you want a personalized experience, they're going to say yes, right? But at the back of their mind, what do they really want? And I think there are two, and it doesn't matter whether McKinsey's asking it or where one of the tech platforms are asking it. I think that at the back of customers' minds, there are two things they want. They want their lives to be made easier because in some way you are personalizing the experience, and they want discounts, right? Because when people are saying, I want personalization, in reality, if you dig deep, what they really want is, I want a discount. And they might couch it in the term, well, I want milestones to be celebrated. Yeah, because you want a 10% offer because it's your birthday, or because it's one year as a customer. So I think that you get kind of when people talk about personalization, I think those are the two real things that they want. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. It reminds me of when both of us used to work in TV, and if you ask people what they liked to watch on TV, they'd typically say historical documentaries and nature. And then when you actually looked at their viewing habits, it was The Only Way Is Essex and Keeping Up with the Kardashians. It sounds a bit like the desire for personalization might be similar. Every study I see from McKinsey or whoever says, customers demand personalization. If they don't get personalized experience from brands, then they'll switch to another brand. I think you're saying the nuance of that is perhaps a little bit more subtle.
Yeah, and you're perhaps maybe as cynical as I am, right? But these studies do come out from platforms that sell personalization and want to sell you the technology or the consultancy around it. So They're not going to say that it doesn't work. But it's the same when you consider things like loyalty programs, which is one of the key tenets of personalization. You know, I still think even with loyalty programs, there's not enough rigor in understanding the real impact of a loyalty program or a personalization program. Because if you're essentially rewarding customers that are already loyal, right, you're not really changing behavior, which is what you want to do. So again, I think a lot of these things you have to take with a pinch of salt, and I think you know the stuff that we used to do when we worked together around doing the fundamentals of, I don't know whether it sounds like old-fashioned stuff these days, but old-fashioned customer journey mapping, right? Understanding the customer, the personas at a broader level, and understanding their needs and wants at the different stages of the customer journey. I know McKinsey will say the customer journey is not linear; it might be circular, it might be a whole bunch of different arrows. But there are some things that customers want at certain touch points. So, and trying to understand that intent, I think, is key. And then you can start thinking about, well, does personalization help at that point? And it might not. You know, I'm frequently asked, should I personalize? And my stock answer is yes, no, maybe, sometimes, right? Because you know, if I'm working for, when I was at ESOP, some of our most successful campaigns had no level of personalization in there whatsoever, because we wanted to talk about the brand, right? And we would never dilute the brand message, because it was our DNA, right? It was part of us. We wouldn't do that. But when it came to personalizing on the right product for you, absolutely, right? And you know, if you bought two elements of the daily regimen, you might have bought the cleanser and the toner, but not the hydrator, then obviously we would talk to you about the matching hydrator. And personalization comes in many different formats. You know, so we might personalize your welcome journey to the store that you made your first purchase in, because we wanted to cement a relationship between you and the store rather than you and the brand, because we knew that relationship was important in terms of, you know, NPS and customer lifetime value, and actually making the retail teams happy. And you can over personalize. Now, I don't know if you remember this, but when we worked together on one of these TV broadcasters, that in particular the sports channel, the marketing teams saying, well, we not only want you to personalize to the fact that they're a subscriber, we want you to personalize to the fact that they're a sports channel subscriber, and that they're a football fan, and to the fact that they're a Man U fan or a Chelsea fan. And I remember I was going, well, I'm not quite sure we want to go to that level of, you know, let's use the word hyper personalization, if only because actually producing the content for that was difficult and expensive for the brand. But we ran the tests, and engagement bombed, right? Because they'd forgotten about why the customer had come to the brand. They hadn't come to the brand because they were a Man U fan, because they would have signed up for Man U TV if they were a Man U fan. They'd come to the brand, come to the TV broadcaster, because of the breadth of content that was available to them. And here we were as clever marketeers, because we've got the data and they've got the technology, sending them down a rabbit hole that they didn't want to go down. They wanted, and I remember the time, the group, one of the questions that they sent out to customers for their customer satisfaction survey was, how happy are you with the breadth of content we're putting in front of you? And here we were as marketeers doing the opposite to what the brands realized the customer wanted. So I think, you know, you can, even when brands get it right, they can get carried away with it and over personalize the content.
So it sounds like there's a risk that sort of excessive personalization can create, I guess, a sort of echo chamber where you're only ever exposed to things that already confirm your existing beliefs, and you never have the opportunity for sort of discovery and serendipity and so on.
Serendipity, I think, is a lovely word, right? I think, you know, and I think part of the reason why we've gone down this rabbit hole is because of the likes of Netflix and Amazon, because of the sheer volume of stuff that I can put in front of you, that it's too much for customers. It's literally too much for them to cope with. And even now, when you walk down a supermarket aisle, there are probably at least 50 different types of cereal, right? But so you can imagine when you've got an endless aisle on e-commerce, the amount of content that I can put in front of you, you have to try and narrow that down. But I think you're right. It's the brands that understand that, well, actually, you know what? This product or this content seems really close to what Matt or what Gianfranco has been used to. But how can we add that level of, let's call it surprise and delight? Here's something that you might like. And obviously they try and do it because they go, people like you also watch this or bought this. It's almost as if sometimes you want to create some kind of capability on the website that goes, where do you want to go today, right? Do you want blue pill or red pill? Because the blue pill will just give you the stuff that you're used to all the time. But the red pill, we're going to send you off somewhere and you'll see some other content. It reminds me of because we talked about personalization from a customer experience perspective at the beginning. And I remember in 2016, there was a Korean company, Innisfree, I think they were called. And when you went into one of their stores, they had two color-coded baskets. And if you wanted help from one of the assistants, you'd pick up a red basket. If you didn't want any help, you'd pick up a black basket, right? So there was them allowing the customer to decide how much support they wanted during that journey. I know that Sephora then did it as well, but I think it was a Korean brand that did it first of all. So almost envisage a day where you go to a website and they literally say to you, do you want us to give you the AI delivered content that we think you're going to love, or do you want to explore? I think that would be a really nice bit of capability that I look forward to you getting one of your clients to do.
Yeah, I wrote that down. Thanks. That's a great idea. Going back to some of the examples that you used in your time at Aesop, it seems where the answer was yes to personalization, it was very product-led and very transactional. Does that mean that you think people are less inclined to want that sort of, again, potentially excessive personalization where it's talking about the football team you support or other things around your lifestyle, because it starts to get into that sort of creep factor and that sort of paradox between giving up your information to a brand versus the level of personalization that you actually desire?
I think there's no stock answer, right? Which is why I think that what a lot of marketeers and brands do is they go, well, because I did it here, I can do it there, right? And that's fundamentally a flawed way of thinking. I think that each brand is unique in its own right. I think there are some brands that have the leeway to deliver that level of personalization and exploring, that lifestyle stuff. I can think of Apple would be a good example. In fact, I don't think Apple personalized much stuff, right? It's just like everyone loves. If you're an Apple fan, you're an Apple fan, right? And you just get Apple content. I think there's, some of the sports brands, I think, have that permission, if you like, because if they've identified, or if you've identified yourself as a runner or a skier or a mountain climber, then I think that the product, the lifestyle content, the brand content that they can put in front of you just makes sense, right? If you're Tesco's or Sainsbury's, I probably just want product content, right? I want you to tell me that the brand of beans that I normally buy is available. If it's not, give me an alternative. Is it on offer? Yes or no? Give me some recipe suggestions. But apart from that, I'm not sure whether the recipe. I'm survey of one, right? But the recipe content that Sainsbury's and Tesco's put on their website, I'm not sure that I've ever explored to any great depth, right? I'll probably go somewhere else for that content. But I think it's a brand by brand case where how far you can go down the personalization level and the type of content you might put in front of somebody.
To use your earlier example, I don't really want my dishwasher tablet manufacturer to know I support Leyton Orient, then send me silly products that are colored red because of that. To be honest, I have to try and avoid Leyton Orient as much as possible. I don't want brands ramming it down my throat. And as a serious point, we're multifaceted human beings, right? Like, just because we like something in one scenario doesn't mean we need it to be things to come through the lens of that in other scenarios.
Exactly, and you know, the world is a very complex place, right? And humans, as you've suggested, are very complex, right? And so there's no way that, in reality, there's no real understanding as to why, unless you've got the science down to the nth degree, and you're able to put the right content in front of me at the right time. And it's a timing perspective, right? Because it's my birthday. Or if we take another example, right? So when we did some stuff with some other skincare companies, in particular around shower gel, right? So the stock marketing automation journey would be, we'll send a discount 3 months after they've bought the shower gel, because on average that's how long people take to buy the shower gel. But when you know the customer, you know that Matt's a super washer, right? So he goes through his shower gel every month, right? So I don't wait 3 months for Matt. I send it to him every month. Jan never washes, so he doesn't get it for 5 months. But what that allows you to do is there's that level of personalization that works because you're getting the timing right. The other benefit of that is that normally some brands at that three month point will send you a 30% discount. Mm. Because they don't know whether you need it or not. They're just trying to get you to buy it. Whereas if I know that you're going to run out in a month, I'll send you a 10% discount, right? Because I know you need the product, right? So all of a sudden I'm satisfying your need, and I'm satisfying the CFO's need, because I'm not giving away the discount that he doesn't want me to give away. But in reality, I don't know whether you've bought another brand, right? There's a little point in a railway company trying to sell me a ticket to Liverpool this week just because I went to Liverpool last week, because it was a one-off, right? So you have to make sure that you have to understand the customer. Again, when I was at ESOP, one of the good things about personalization is, or one of the things you think about with personalization is what not to send a customer, right? So when we did the analysis of customers and how they move from being a new customer, or a sapling customer as we call them, to becoming a hero customer, we noticed that it went on a bit of a journey. Yeah, I know every customer is different, but in general, they went on a journey, and that journey normally meant that they became happy or comfortable with a particular category before moving into another category, right? So if I bought body care, shower gel, body wash, whatever we called it, week one at €50 a bottle, it wasn't cheap stuff. I wouldn't automatically buy skincare the week after. But as a brand, I'm selling skincare the week after. So historically, we would just send you the skincare stuff, and it would bomb, right? Because you're not quite sure whether you love the product or not, and it's quite a jump. And I often use my wife as a survey of one, right? And she will wash with whatever she has in the bathroom, right? Whether it's, if I brought home ESOP stuff or Avon stuff or the Body Shop stuff, she'll use that. But what goes on her skin, it's a completely different ball game, right? That's sacrosanct. And so, you have to understand the consumer in terms of how they go from one category to another before deciding what to send them. So one of the things that we did was we essentially stopped selling to you in the first, and particularly if you bought skincare, we didn't sell to you in the first 30 days. Because we might try and find out from you whether you like the product or not, right? Mm. And then use that further down the track. But even if they didn't like the product, we'd encourage them to come talk to us either online or in store to find out why we effectively sold you the wrong product, and try and fix that. But we didn't automatically try and sell you something. Before I arrived, we would try and sell you a €150 fragrance on the back of the fact that you just bought a €15 lip salve. It's a big jump, right? And again, which is why I think that personalization only works if you understand the customer much better than a lot of brands do now. A lot of brands still think that personalization is just what the data is telling them in the machine, if you like, right? I remember doing some work with a DIY company who they were really good at understanding, you bought a sample pot of paint, it went through the pores, the back end would start, ringing and dinging, we need to send you some more paints offers because you're going to paint a room. What they really wanted to know was, how can I spot someone who's just about to go on a £10,000 project and send them the right offer? So how do I spot that they're going to do a bathroom renovation or a kitchen extension before they've gone to another supplier? And we looked at the data and we saw that there was some products that they bought that was a signifier that they were going to go on a £10,000 project. And I ask people, what do you think that product was? And people will say, oh, well, it's a tape measure or something like that. And I go, no, not really. It was often a packet of birdseed. And then you could see the look of, what? And then we put ourselves in the customer's shoes. And of course, before you spend £10,000 on one of these projects, you do your research. So you go to B&Q, Homebase, Travis Perkins, IKEA, and you'd often buy something in that store that was completely unrelated to the project. And actually, you probably wouldn't go into that store to buy that product. I mean, no one buys a DVD at the B&Q till, right? And they don't go in there to buy that, or a Mars bar or something, or a packet of birdseed. And so it was understanding the customer. So it's to get personalization right, I think you have to blend that and what I call thick and thin data. So the thin data that digital behavior gives you, mixed with that thick data of understanding customer, right? Because otherwise it's just a machine doing stuff for you. And I think our roles as marketeers become slightly redundant, and we don't really do our customers justice.
I think that's a great example around the birdseed as an indicator of embarking on a big home renovation project. Loads of DVDs at B&Q, by the way. I'm not sure about that point. It reminds me of another example you gave to me of the next product people are most likely to buy after buying a trampoline. Do you remember?
I do. That was with I do remember the brand, but yeah. So again, we'd ask at presentations. We'd say, so yeah, what would be the next best product to put in front of someone in someone's email after they bought the trampoline? And most people would say, well, safety net or a table and chair so the parents could watch and it wasn't. It was grass seed, because underneath the trampoline the grass died because of the lack of sunlight. So again, it's it's understanding. Part of that is using data to understand that, but also thinking about the realities of what happens when someone buys a product.
So it does sound like with the technology and the sophistication of the technology, there are real opportunities for brands to be able to increase revenues, increase loyalty, and so on, if you're putting the right products in front of the right people at the right time. Like, are you seeing this? Are brands that are delivering these type of personalized experiences performing better? And all the studies say that they do. So is this?
They do, right? I mean, and I saw it because I've implemented new CRM programs, personalization programs in a few places now, and often obviously the business case is predicated on that uplift that I'm convincing the CFO and the CMO will happen as a result of doing this, and it does. I think you often don't. You might not get the uplift that you think in the timely manner that you think, because often something in the environment or the context that you're working in inhibits it, right? Because it's always not that you forget stuff, because hopefully these days I don't forget things. I remember 10 years ago people would forget, oh crikey, I need to create content for this stuff, right? I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't thought I needed to create content for this personalization. I just thought personalization just happened in its own context, its own way. But the data is not as good as you thought it was, right? It's in the wrong place. We don't really understand the data that well. 5 years of getting the data into the technology might have been an issue. Producing the content, the business changes priorities. I remember, one of the brands I worked with, we didn't get the support that we wanted for the CRM program because there was a massive push for China all of a sudden, right? And so development and resource went to that market requirement rather than CRM. So I think you kind of not I'm not suggesting that as marketeers you play the game, but sometimes you have to think about, being slightly conservative with your uplift, or hiding some of the potential and just saving that in the background. I think that, I guess we wouldn't produce a business case these days without there being well, this is what we think we will get, and then there'll be a stretch on that as well. So I think that you need to caveat the fact that things, especially from a tech perspective, I often find that, I hope there's no one listening from a tech department, but sometimes the tech teams underestimate the amount of work required to implement new technology and overestimate their capability. Yeah. So, but I think, the value is there. I think that sometimes, proving the incrementality that you've delivered is difficult. So I think a lot of the work has to be put into how you measure that. And then sometimes the KPIs will vary brand by brand, because I think that, sometimes it's not just the revenue you're after. Sometimes you want to prove that customer satisfaction has gone through, has lifted, or your NPS score has lifted. And then think about, it's often the value that you bring is not always a seasonal or campaign uplift, although hopefully you'll see that. But you need to think slightly longer term as well. So think about, the well-worn road of customer lifetime value, or customer lifetime profits as well, bringing that into the mix. So I think you have to think about the 3 to 5 year objectives while satisfying the CMO and the CFO, because he'll want to see something in 6 months, 12 months as well. So it's how do you mix those short-term gains with the long-term view that I think you need to take.
For sure.
Yeah.
And to pick up your point around the technology, and in particular the pace of change in technology, and I have to mention AI, otherwise I get arrested by the AI police for not including it in every conversation I have. But obviously the sophistication of the ability to deliver personalized experience is rapidly enhancing. Like, what is going to happen? What does personalization look like in 5 years?
I bet it looks a bit like it does today. I think we've AI has been around for a while, and described it in slightly different ways, whether it's just modeling or large language work. It's been there. I just think that the scale that we can deliver now will increase. But I think some of the value that AI brings will be around the peripheral stuff that we need to deliver on personalization. So the decision making, right, and content production, and the speed with which we can do the analysis and gain those insights. That's where the real value will get, and perhaps allow the marketers more time to think about what type of personalization is required for that customer to satisfy their need and want at that particular touch point in the customer journey. But I think that whether you call it personalization or customization or customer experience, it will certainly evolve, I think, at a pace over the next 4 or 5 years. Even things like, there's a particular department store that I shop at, and when I go to their webpage, they know now that I'll always do click and collect. They know that this is a particular store that I pick up from, and they know that this is the payment method that I use. So that becomes front and center when I complete my order. I'm not wasting time picking click and collect, picking the store, picking my payment type. And that for me is personalization. And I think that, but also personalization will lend itself to product as well. So how do we use technology, AI or whatever, to allow customers to, whether you call it customization or personalization, but create a product that is specifically for me. You see some of the fragrance companies going in that direction, footwear in particular as well. I think that's where it's going to go. It's going to go where personalization and customization come together to really allow the customer to dictate creating a product for me, creating an experience for me, and actually decide, allowing the customer to decide the level of personalization or help or support that I need when I'm going through a particular customer journey or in-store activity.
Makes sense. And then finally, do you have a piece of killer advice for any marketers who regard the need to improve their personalization for their customers?
Just get to know the customer first. Understand what the customer wants, and don't go down what I call the road of cruel optimism, which is a term that I've stolen from Lauren Berlant, a famous author, where I'm going to ruin her quote, but where the thing that you aspire to have actually inhibits what you're trying to do. So don't let the shiny technology divert you from what you're trying to do, which is satisfy customer satisfaction and needs. Think about the customer first rather than what the technology can do for you, because otherwise you will go down a rabbit hole where money and resources will be burnt away without delivering any uplift.
That is great advice. Thank you. Thanks so much. One last plug for your book, In Pursuit of the Trivial, available at all good booksellers, I assume.
Even some of the bad ones, apparently.
Great. I'm going to go and email my dishwasher tablet brand and tell them I support Leighton Orient now and see what happens. But in the meantime, thanks so much. It's been absolutely fascinating and great insights. Thanks, Gianfranco.
All right. Speak to you soon.
Bye.